The wind cut across the plains like a living blade, carrying the scent of frozen earth and distant herds. The sky was a low grey ceiling, pressing down over the tribe as they moved in silence, dragging sleds of fur and children behind them. Kyle walked at the front, his eyes sharp, his hands gripping a spear worn smooth from use. He had grown strong and cautious, the years of hunting and survival shaping him like the stones he carried in his tools. The others followed, shuffling over frozen grass, their breath misting in the air like smoke. It had been weeks since the last kill, weeks since the children had eaten more than dried roots and scraps, and hunger gnawed at every belly. Among the tribe, Kyle was both protector and hunter, though he felt the weight of their lives pressing down on his shoulders more heavily than the packs or the frozen snow. At the edge of a rocky ravine, they found tracks, large, fresh, clawed marks that dug into the mud beneath the melting snow. Kyle bent down, tracing the impressions with his fingers, wolves or something larger. The tribe stopped behind him, silent, listening to the crackle of ice and the distant cry of a lone bird. A faint tremor ran through the ground, unnoticed at first, until it grew sharp and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Kyle looked up. From the ridge above, a massive figure loomed, its dark fur bristling in the wind, tusks gleaming faintly under the weak winter sun. A mammoth, wounded and moving with slow purpose. Kyle's chest tightened. They had no choice. If the beast survived, it would crush the nearby food stores. If they struck and failed, it could kill one of them. He signaled to the hunters, and silently they flanked the creature, crouching behind boulders and frozen brush. Kyle felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the sharp clarity of focus that comes with life and death in balance. The first spear was thrown, striking the mammoth near its shoulder. It trumpeted in pain, a sound so vast and resonant it seemed to shake the cliffs themselves. The others threw, and the creature faltered, then charged, tusks swinging. One hunter was thrown aside, screaming, landing hard against a rock. Kyle ran forward, raising his own spear, and thrust it deep into the mammoth's flank. Blood coated his hands, warm and sticky, and he felt the creature stumble beneath his weight. When it fell finally, the ground shook under its bulk, and silence descended on the plain. The tribe gathered around the fallen mammoth, breathing hard, eyes wide with awe and exhaustion. Kyle stood back, wiping the blood from his face, and looked at the other hunters. There was a brief sense of triumph, but it was fleeting, replaced by the gnawing realization of loss. One of the younger men had been pinned beneath the tusk during the charge, his screams cut off abruptly. Kale ran to him, but it was too late. The boy's eyes stared upward, unblinking, empty of life. Kyle dropped to his knees beside him, hands trembling. He had seen death before, in the wilds, in the bones scattered across the plains. But never like this. Never so close, never human. The boy's chest did not rise. There was no sound, no warning, only the cold bite of inevitability. The tribe stood around him, frozen, unsure of what to do. Vara, the elder, approached slowly, eyes shadowed under the hood of his furs. He knelt beside Kyle and the boy, placing a hand on the still body. "He has gone," he said softly. The words were foreign in Kyle's ears, heavy with a weight he had no name for. He shook his head, staring at the boy, feeling an unfamiliar emptiness claw at his chest. He wanted to cry, but he had never been taught that motion. He wanted to speak, to command, to fight against the unyielding truth, but the words would not come. The tribe looked at one another, faces pale and drawn. Some began to weep quietly. Others clenched fists, staring at the ground as though the earth itself had betrayed them. Kyle remained still, hands hovering above the boy, trying to grasp the reality that life could end, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. For the first time, he felt fear not for himself but for the fragile thread of existence that connected everyone he loved. It was a sensation that expanded within him, filling every hollow space, pressing on his chest like stone. He did not speak. He could not. He only stared at the stillness. And in that silence, something shifted in him. Something like understanding, like the first taste of grief. The tribe decided to bury the boy at the edge of the ravine. They carried him gently, speaking in low tones, making sounds that had no name. Kyle followed, carrying a small bundle of furs for the body. When they reached the shallow depression between rocks, they laid him down carefully. They began to place stones over his chest, covering him inch by inch. Kyle dropped his own stone last, feeling the weight press against his palms, then against his soul. He wanted to shout, to fight the unfairness of it, but no sound would rise. Instead, He pressed his hand to the cold earth, tracing the shape of the boy's face in his mind, committing every detail to memory as if that alone could keep him alive. That night, Cale sat apart from the others, staring into the fire that burned low. Smoke twisted into the darkening sky, curling as though reaching for the lost soul. His hands shook as he took up a sharpened stick and began carving a mark into a nearby stone. A crude representation of the boy's face, the first attempt to capture a memory in shape. The act filled him with a strange warmth, a small defiance against the void. He did not speak the boy's name aloud, because no one had a name for him. But in that silent gesture, Cale began to understand something profound. Death was not just the end of life, it was the awakening of memory, of thought, of what it meant to care for one another beyond survival. The following days were heavy with quiet. The tribe moved slowly, their eyes avoiding the ravine, their hands busy with the mundane tasks of gathering and preparing food. Cale felt the weight of the boy's absence at every step, the empty hand where he had run ahead, the missing laugh, the silence at meals. He found himself watching the younger children more closely, teaching them not only how to hunt or build, but how to watch, how to listen, how to notice the small things that might preserve life. His mind turned constantly to the question of mortality. He tried speaking to the others, pointing to the marks on the stone, trying to convey something beyond the immediate needs of food and shelter. Most did not understand. Only Vara watched him closely, nodding faintly, as if recognizing the birth of a thought larger than the moment. Then came the storms. Snow fell heavier than before, and the winds carried an icy bite that pierced through furs. Travel became slow and treacherous. Food was scarce. One morning, a pack of wolves appeared near their camp, hungry and unafraid. The tribe panicked, grabbing spears and forming a circle around the children. Cale remembered the boy, remembered the helplessness he had felt, and he shouted a new sound, not a word, but a command, a warning. The others paused, listening. He repeated it, and then another hunter joined, echoing the sound. Slowly, the group responded, moving in unison, driving the wolves back with coordinated thrusts and noise. The act was small, but Cale understood then that death had taught him something vital: foresight, coordination, communication, all born from loss.